Client-side wireless attacks. Attacking the weakest link. CIT 270, presentation number 3. Presented by Keith Downing, and also Chris Kitchens, Megan Nolan, Poloski Cordone. Client-side attacks refer to a hacker's attacks to personal computers or laptops, in contrast with server-side attacks on websites, data servers, or email servers. Why client-side attacks? Servers are more secure than ever. They are protected by firewalls, user authentication policies, hardware physical security, etc. Hackers have a very difficult time breaking server security measures. Direct attacks on servers are rare compared to attacks to servers through companies connected to them. It's easier to attack a client, which are normally more vulnerable, and then access servers' resources through an already authenticated client. Client-side attacks exploit the trust between the user and the website or server they visit. Wireless clients are more vulnerable to attacks because they use a lot of different methods to access websites and servers, many times through third-party network resources. A cookie is a file in which the server stores user-specific information on the user's local computer. It contains information based on the user's preferences. There are several different types of cookies. They can pose security risks. First-party cookies can be stolen and used to impersonate the user. Session hijacking is all about knowing the session ID, SID, of an active user so that his or her account can be impersonated or hijacked. Hence, if this SID value of any active user is known to us, we can use the same and log in to the application as a victim and thus get access to all of the information. And if the session ID is gone, everything's gone. Now let us talk about some different types of session hijacking. First, there is session sidejacking. Session sidejacking can occur if SSL is not used and data is in plain text. Anyone within the network can grab cookies by sniffing the traffic. Session fixation is an attack where the attacker fixes the session in advance and just waits for the user to log in order to hijack it. Then generating cookies before authentication is a type of hijacking where the same cookie is generated before authentication and is also used after authentication, which is common in public or shared computers, like at a store or restaurant as an example. Predictable session IDs uses the method where an attacker tries to predict the session ID of a user and then hijacks the attack, which is usually accomplished through a brute force attack. And finally here, using cross-site scripting vulnerabilities deal with XSS attacks, which means an attacker will utilize XSS to execute scripts on the end user's browser, which is just writing a script that can access the cookie value and sends it to the attacker's server. Header manipulation means that the attacker has modified the HTTP header. This allows the attacker to give instructions to the web browser. There are several ways to manipulate the header. One way is through the refer. By changing the refer field, the attacker can hide the fact that the request came from a different site. Another way is through accept language header field. An attacker can modify this field and inject the SQL command. One of the most common attack is response splitting. By inserting certain characters into HTTP header, the attacker gains control of the rest of the HTTP headers and body of the response. They can also create additional responses. This image shows the characters in red, which allow the manipulation. A cookie is a file which the server stores user-specific information on the user's local computer. It contains information based on the user's preferences. There are several different types of cookies. They can pose security risks. The first-party cookies can be stolen and used to impersonate the user. An add-on adds functionality to a web browser. Attackers can create add-ons to attack the user's computer. Microsoft's ActiveX is a set of rules which determine how applications share information. Attackers can use the weaknesses in these rules to make an application do something. Attackers can also gain access to your client through the opening of attachments and emails. This is the most common form of client-side attacks through attachments. An attacker will mimic a legitimate user within your network by sending an email to you that will have a .pdf, Microsoft Word file, or some other attachment. As you go to open the file so you can download and view it, the attacker could have access to your operating system already. Phishing is the fraudulent practice of sending emails purporting to be from reputable companies in order to induce individuals to reveal personal information, such as passwords and credit card numbers. Social engineering techniques are often used by hackers to attack individual computers. Social engineering refers to the use of deception to manipulate individuals into divulging confidential or personal information that may be used for fraudulent purposes. For an example, an attacker may send an email with a link, with a message that convinces the user to click on it. When the user clicks on the link, it redirects to a fake website, which look very much like the real website. The fake website will ask for the user's password and other personal information. In this case, the attacker did not need to crack the password. He just needed to convince the user to give it to him. As we've previously discussed, client-side attacks using malicious attachments are very common and very easily executed. There are many file types which can contain malicious software to harm your machine. Most of these files will run malware as soon as they are downloaded and opened. It is important to only open attachments from trusted sources, and even then you may need to inspect the attachment before opening it, especially if it is something you weren't expecting to receive. On this slide here, we're going to look for the obvious and something not so obvious signs of malicious content in these emails. There are 7 issues with this email alone. Now, let's look at this email shot here, and let's look at the 7 problems as mentioned before. Number 1, lowercase subject line. Number 2, a foreign sender. Number 3, attached zip file. Number 4, incorrect grammar used in greeting. Number 5, odd phrasing and grammar usage. Number 6, punctuation issues. And number 7, just overall general inconsistencies. In this case, signing the email with good night when it was sent at 6:15 a.m. in the morning. If we were to make the error of downloading the zip file and running the contents within, as shown here, we would discover an .exe file. Once we ran this file, we find it spawns another malicious file named whopicky.exe, which then asks for firewall access. If given, the program is allowed to communicate with the host servers to download further malware, which places itself on the user's C drive. This particular malware also sets itself to start whenever the computer is turned on, and is capable of gathering sensitive information from the user, including social security numbers, identifying information, banking information, and etc. In conclusion, thank you, and this concludes the CIT 270 presentation number 3 by Chris Kitchens, Megan Nolan, Keith Downing, and Poloski Cordone.